This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Tom Swales with COMPhysio and Performance Wellness. How are you today, Tom?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on the show. We have heard a lot about your business. That's how we got in touch with you. So I'm excited to learn more, do a little bit of deep dive into it. So if you're ready, let's tell the audience a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so we originally called Concept of Movement. We just recently rebranded to COMPhysio. We just kind of shortened the name to kind of match today's demographics of people not wanting to use longer words and trying to, embody what kind of display what we actually do. So Concept of Movement was a little bit tough to describe, but COMPhysio describes better. But we've been in on Bradford Street in Barrie for the last 11 years. We've grown from just Kylie and myself. So my wife, Kylie, we own the business together. She's the business brain side of things. I'm the health and wellness performance guy side of things. And we started it 11 years ago. 4,000 square feet, just the two of us. She's on the front desk. I'm the only clinician. We have one strength coach. And it became one of those, it was a lot bigger than we wanted to start with, but we built it and people started to come. And we have 22 staff now. So we have physiotherapy, we have chiropractor, massage therapy, acupuncture, strength and conditioning, movement therapy, and osteopathy. So we've grown from 3 to just over 20. I think we're at 22 or 23 in the last 11 years. So it's been a wild ride, and we've had 2 kids in the midst of that and moved 3 times. And
of course, you got to add that.
Why not? When you're an entrepreneur, you're just a sucker for suffering. But we've learned to just be like, well, this is the course and let's just keep doing it. So it's been great. We've got an amazing team. And great leadership in place and amazing staff. So we're very grateful.
I love it, man. I mean, it just sounds like such a simple formula, but you just alluded to it 30 seconds ago. Entrepreneurs, sucker for suffering. I imagine that took a toll to get you guys there. That's a level of growth in 10, 11 years. That is not too common. We are in the business of growing businesses, and that's a success, man. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
22 staff is, man. I'm glad you have good leadership though, because that's 22 different personalities. It's hard to make sure everybody's on the same page and happy.
Yeah. And, our staff's been just awesome. The culture, everyone's, for what we know, happy to be there. We don't have turnover, so to speak. We've been growing, which has been awesome. So that's kind of our feedback loop as, all right, we're doing something right because people are staying and, they're busy and they want to keep learning. Like we do education every week. We do masterminds. There's continuing growth in the company. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. I love the background. I'm going to dive into that in a little bit. Before we do that, tell the listeners about your story. Why did you get into this? Are you passionate about it? Did you always know? Like, what was the lead up to what is now quite a successful wellness and fitness center?
Yeah. I mean, it always comes back to, growing up as an athlete. You're like, well, I like sports, so it makes sense if I'm not going to be a professional athlete. But, going to rehabilitation, I wanted to learn how to fix myself. So I actually started being a physiotherapist from selfish reasons. And it drove that interest. But then I also found out I had a knack for it, and also analyzing movement and bringing different disciplines together. So I have a background in athletic. I'm an athletic trainer from the States. I went down there and then came back home, did my master's for physio, and then did acupuncture and the kettlebells, and then like all these different disciplines together. And I knew, that physiotherapy, and we'll talk about that. First is there's a huge gap between what we do as clinicians and actually getting people completely 100%, especially when you're working with athletes. So I wanted to meld the two disciplines of manual therapy, rehabilitation to high performance. And there's a gap. And I feel, though, being specialized in both realms, I was able to bridge that gap together and provide that product and that service to the local community.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I mean, prior to getting into business myself and really enjoying teaching people how to grow, fitness is it was my starting point. Athlete as well, similar to you. You took it a lot farther than I did. But a personal trainer for a lot of years, about 12 or 13. Still do it on the weekends a little bit because I love it so much.
Nice.
But from the coaches that I have learned so much from, as that's what similar to you, you wanted to rehab yourself. I had goals that I wanted to do, a bit of a bodybuilder, wanted to compete. And from learning all that, it's like, wow, you can help other people with this along the way.
Yeah.
And then the fulfillment you get from helping other people. But the coaches that I follow, the mentorship, a lot of them are multidisciplinarians, and they're just combining. It just seems like something that needed to be done because, as you said, there's just a gap between a lot of the disciplines. Combining them seems to produce better results, at least from my experience, and it seems like certainly from yours.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We have the way that our facility is set up. We have a 5,000 square foot facility, and half of it is the rehab side of things, where you get the private offices, you get your acupuncture, your manual therapy, your assessments, and then the other side, you go through a door. We call it the movement factory, and it's just a big open space. We got monkey bars, we got balance beams, we got kettlebells, we got barbells, and I tell clients, I'm like, look, this side over here where you're coming in, this is where you feel better. Like, yeah, getting needles, it feels good. Like, you remove barriers, reduce pain, and we get you moving. But in the gym side of things is where you actually get better. Because if I just do the manual therapy, we make changes, but they're temporary. You get about 48 hours. And then if I don't teach you how to move and load that differently, well, your brain goes back and you're like, well, I'm just going to go back to the old pattern. And guess what? Pain's back. So to me, that wasn't good enough. It's not a very good service model. It's a good business model for some practices because the client has to keep coming back and getting that little tune up. But that for me was not enjoyable. That was not fulfilling. I'm like, the job is to get you to feel good, get you to move good, and then get you out of here so that you can go do the things and you don't need to keep coming here every week for a little tune up. Because if you got to come for a tune up frequently, well, I'm not doing my job as a clinician and as your coach to teach you how to get to that next level. So that's our philosophy. As I said, it's not a very good business model, but it is a much better service model in the end.
Well, I really hope people heard that because I think that is common. We go to a specialist in some discipline. They tell us what to do and we just follow them.
Sure.
Sometimes that's not always the best approach, especially when that following requires you maybe a chiropractor, something like that. Just coming back. I get relief for a week or two and then I'm back. Relief for a week or two and then I'm back. I love that you said this is where you feel better. So we get things going, you put them in the right position. And then basically in your movement factory, you get it to keep. You kind of address the core issue here and get people to understand their bodies a little bit better, what they're capable of, and actually moving forward in life rather than just addressing the symptom constantly. That has been my experience for many, many years. As I've broken a number of bones, as I imagine you have, being an athlete. And it was just that repeat over and over and over again to the point where I was told that this is just the way it is for you. You broke your knee. You're going to need to come back again and again and again. Sorry, that's kind of your lot in life now. Until I ran into somebody kind of similar to you. It changed. I mean, really not trying to blow this out of proportion, but that was almost 10 years of doing that repeat stuff.
Yeah.
And, I was probably 27 at that point. And the last 10 years have been completely transformative because of that one bit of information to say, I just got to teach you the things you need to know to start getting you going again, strengthen these joints rather than addressing the symptom all the time. I love that you do that. I really hope people heard that. Not only could you save money, substantial amounts of money, but you can change your whole life from doing that.
Yeah. One of the key things that everyone does is the clinicians and the coaches there, we tell them, like, treat every client like a student, like make them a student of their body, talk out loud, tell them what you see and what they could be associated with so that you empower them. And when they're empowered and they're more self-aware of what their body's doing, they can self-fix it. Because a lot of injuries, people come in, they're like, oh, well, my shoulder, it's a little tweaky, or my back. Well, what'd you do? I don't know. So the number one thing that causes injury, at least in my opinion, is a lack of self-awareness. I'm like, well, your body knows what you did, but you didn't. And 95% of the information is subconscious. But you now have the signal to make you pay attention to that body part, but you don't know why it started in the first place. and shoulder, the body's funny because typically where we have pain, most of the time, that's not the problem. Problem's someplace else. You look at simple physics, and I won't get too much into details here. Energy moves to the area of least resistance. Well, if I have a shoulder that moves really well, but I don't have a neck that moves or a rib cage that moves, or I have slouchy posture, well, those areas aren't distributing forces. So guess where all that energy is accumulating into? Well, that shoulder, because the shoulder typically is the most mobile joint. But if you can't move anywhere else and distribute forces across the body effectively, well, of course your shoulder's sore, because that's where you're moving into. It's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And what a way of explaining it too. I mean, yeah, well done, man. I love that. I love that concept.
Yeah.
Myths and misconceptions. I think that you've already established a few. Certainly for me, the hard lessons that I had to learn, but myths or misconceptions for your industry. What are people thinking out there that is certainly not true? And if they had a reframing of that thought, could change so much.
Yeah. So one of the reframes that, people will come in and they've seen other practitioners or health professionals, and they're like, well, I have degenerative disc disease and I have a partial tear in my rotator cuff. I'm like, okay, great. Like we all have lots of those, but, and then they get into this system of belief that, well, I'm broken, I can't do these things. I'm like, you can do lots of things. We just have to work around it, and the body will heal. The body is amazing. It can heal itself. We as practitioners do not heal. We are facilitators. We help remove barriers, whether mentally or physically. We apply energies to the body through modalities or touch to help increase circulation, neuroconduction, whatever it is. And then the body takes care of it itself. And then you add in nutrition and, exercise prescription and dosing. Well, that's all just adding energies to the body. And you can look at energies in any way you want, whether it's movement, nerve conduction, blood flow, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, the body will reorganize itself if it's giving the environment in which to do so. And we provide the environment. That's all we do. Like, we're not magic. We just have an understanding of how the body and the nervous system and everything works together. And I can get somebody to touch their toes in 60 seconds or less, and they haven't done it in 10 years. But it's because we know how to go after certain reflexes and patterns in which to unlock the nervous system to remove that guarding or that fear out of the body, so that, hey, you can bend and touch your toes without herniating your disc. Because the disc, if it's been there for a year, it's healed. But the habits and the patterns that you've adopted to protect that over the last year, those need to be changed. And that's very easily changed.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you said, we don't heal, we facilitate. You guys are a guide, which from my experience, having the right teacher, the right guide, the right mentor, I mean, that can expedite your life journey significantly. Not only it's like, I'm trying to get to where I want to go as fast as possible. That's not the only thing. Quality of life is my goal. I want to enjoy what I do. I want to be healthy and feel youthful for, creeping up on 40 now.
Yep.
And, because I've kept my health together, yeah, I would argue that I probably feel better in my 20s. And I have 50 and 60-year-old mentors that say the exact same thing, because they learned some of the things that you're trying to teach, which is so impactful on somebody's life. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on the show. We're very passionate about health and quality of life, and I don't think you can have one without the other. No. I think you need to address health maybe at the top of the priority list to get that quality of life. I love what you guys are doing, man.
Yeah, it's not just chasing after, oh, well, I got this ache or pain, so we should deal with that today. If you build up a resilience or a reserve of strength and cardiovascular health and mobility, well, then if you incur an excess stress or some kind of trauma in your life, you can manage it better. Yeah. But if you're already at this threshold of fragility, and all of a sudden now life hits you and imposes some kind of traumatic event, well, you're in trouble. But if you have this capacity way up here and something hits you, well, you get knocked down to here, but you can bounce back faster. And it's really about building that resiliency and capacity of, health is an insurance policy. That's it. Being strong is an insurance policy. Being mobile is an insurance policy, so that you can move in and out of precarious situations if need be. And, one of the life-changing events, which we'll get to, in a little bit, is, I was recently in the hospital for 5 weeks with a strep A infection, and my organs shut down. I lost 50 pounds of body weight. I was on dialysis, respirators, 10 days in the ICU. Yeah. So this past June, all of a sudden I got this invasive strep A, put me in the ICU for 10 days. I was on respirators. They had to take fluid off my body every day. Heart failure, liver failure, kidney failure, rhabdomyolysis, clot
Jesus.
disorder. Yeah. So, and I didn't know how bad it was at the time in the ICU. I was like, oh, I'm just super sick. And so I was in the ICU for 10 days, and all I remember is a lot of pain and everybody having to do everything for me because it's basically I was bedridden. And then when I got into the rehab side of things, I asked the doc, I was like, well, what were my odds? He's like, less than 30%. I was like, oh, wow, I was really sick. He's like, you were super sick. And a couple of them shared. I was very fortunate at Soldiers. All of the specialists in Ontario happened to be doing summer placements or summer locums there because they want to be in cottage country. So I had a lot of the best doctors in Ontario looking after me, and they all knew who I was, which was fun. But they all said the only reason you're still here is because of how healthy and fit you came in. I said, and that's what switched my mind around. I'm like, okay, all this work of training, and putting yourself through cold baths and resistance training and that little bit of suffering, that dosing of discomfort, mentally as well as physically helped pull me through on top of, having that reason to live with my family and my kids, and my wife was there every single day, from morning till night. And, but I came out with all my toes. They thought I was going to lose toes because everything went black. And they said, so to survive it was less than 30%. To come out with all your limbs, because normally you get this flesh eating disease, is far less. So I lost 50 pounds. I was on hard antibiotics. I'd have ankle surgery. So I'm still rehabbing that, but I put on 40 pounds back on in the last 5 months. And I've just been following the system that we use at our facility. And seeing going from somebody who takes care of everybody to totally independent to like my colleagues are coming to the house to work on me in this emaciated state, and I'm all crooked, and they're coming to the house because I'm too weak to leave, and I've got a walker and I have to relearn how to walk again, and I can't get to and from the floor. It was an eye opener, and I'm forever grateful because the staff, they called us and they're like, Kylie, you don't need to be here. We've got the business. They did a hiring. They hired 2 people. So our leadership team and the staff just took over. They made us food, made my family food. They bought me pajamas. It was awesome. Like, they really stepped up, and we're really proud of the culture and the company that, we've helped foster over the years, and the people that we get to work with. And, I'm on the mend, and putting the weight back on, and pretty soon I'm hopefully to get back to my gymnastics and flipping around and whatnot, but I'll be patient with that. And yeah, but looking after your health now when we're younger, I'm going to say younger, I'm 40, I'll be 45 this year. It's your insurance policy. It's the number one thing you can invest in every day.
Yeah. So first, very happy that you came out of that good. I don't know you all that well, but just the information that you're sharing is valuable. Your impact on the community through growing a business like that. And I just want everybody to be healthy. So I'm very happy you came out of that. But what I took away from that was, for anybody listening, myself as well, because health is important to me, but sometimes I drop the ball, is you don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure you did not know that strep A was coming and that you'd have multiple organ failure at 45, a healthy guy. It gave you a beating, but you got out of it.
Yeah.
And now you're back within half a year. It seems like you're almost back to where you were.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine if you were obese, if you were a sedentary lifestyle, if you were a smoker, if you're a drinker. I do some counseling on the weekend at an addictions facility, and we combined those type of mental and physical challenges with a wellness center. So we go over talk therapy, a bunch of different type of modalities, and then we use physical fitness, nutrition, and all that because we think they need to be combined. And It's the insurance policy. I like that you labeled it that, because that's really what it is. You don't know what's coming. You might as well stack the deck in your favor. And here's the plus side. It feels really good when you do it.
Yeah.
It feels really good to be in shape.
Yeah. It's, like when you're doing it, it's uncomfortable. But we've become a society of comfort.
Yes.
And, there's no need to, food's delivered and, entertainment's there and we don't have to travel and this, that, and the other, but it creates, soft, like we become soft and then also we're not resilient anymore, whether mentally or physically or whatever it is. And when you lose that capacity, which I lost on that, being able to protect my family and handle myself, to my 10-year-old daughter having to get me food in bed, like I'm like, never again. But that feeling, I was very grateful. But that feeling of helplessness is just terror. Like, it was awful. If anything, that was the hardest thing, that just feeling of helplessness. I can't help those I love around me at this point in time. So now I'm going to have to work twice as hard to get back to where I was so that I can still be here much longer for them in the future.
Honestly, you kept us, I don't know, everybody has different levels of emotional sensitivity. I don't think I could have said what you just said without getting teared up, man. The stoic look on your face while you shared that story. Kudos to you for a number of things, but that was an impactful story, man. Really, that sharing that story for people to hear, especially because it lines up with your business and what you're trying to do in life, is just, there's so many people out there spreading that message, but still our lives, big business, technology advances. We are in the world of convenience, and the more convenient it can be, the more I can just press a button or even speak into something. That's a very profitable business.
Yep.
And it results in this idea of instant gratification, whereas the things that you're talking about are rooted solely in deferred gratification. And sometimes people don't want to pay that price, but whoever's listening, it's worth it. Listen to Tom. If not to me, it's worth it. I really appreciate you sharing that, man.
Yep. You're very welcome.
On the lighter side of things, not that I didn't like what you just said. I love that stuff, but to find a little more playfulness, what do you do for fun outside of things? So you're a business owner, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a health guy. Clearly you study.
Yep.
Are any of those things fun, or do you do anything on top of that for fun?
The thing is, the only way to keep doing and pursuing business and pursuing, like, it has to be fun. You have to find enjoyment in it, whether it's in the process or whether it's reaching that next pinnacle. There's never an end goal, because that's impossible. As soon as you reach one goal, you're just like, what's the next thing? So if you can find fun in the process of work and entrepreneurship, which, we've opened up, we have a couple other businesses. One's an education platform that I started, one that we use, like, to train all of our staff. It's called the Advanced Movement Therapist Certification. But I wanted to elevate the overall global standard of practice across all health practitioners. So I created this entire certification from what we do. So that's a fun thing that we're doing right now. My wife and I, we work together. She comes from a real estate background, so we're interested in that. Travel. Our kids, we bring them into the business conversations as much as possible. And it's never, it's just part of life. And, like, we're trying to teach them principles that you learn from entrepreneurship and being business owners and, working with others from a team environment. But, as well as, like, we snowboard, we ski, we'll go out west, try and go out west once a year to do a big ski trip. It's find the fun in everything you do. And then it's not really work.
That really is one of the secrets that I've been taught, wrestled with for many years. It seems to be coming together these last, 6, 7, is to, if it's not fun and you're doing something for 10 years, and then for whatever reason, that's the end.
Yeah.
You just spent the last 10 years doing whatever you did. Hopefully it helped some people, but you didn't enjoy it. So what's the point?
Yeah.
But clearly you guys are doers. Do you ever have a moment for just that stillness, just to stop and recognize all that you've done and just take a breath?
Yeah, you know what? Being in the hospital for that 5 weeks definitely forced me to sit still and sit on it. Because even when I got out of the hospital, I had such high expectations to be like, my body should be getting better faster. And everyone's like, you're doing great. I'm like, I could be better. And she's just like, look, you have the energy to get from the bed to the couch, read a book, just enjoy the time of stillness. And that was really hard for me because I have a hard time sitting and watching a movie without foam rolling or doing something on the ground. So it really, it put that perspective of sitting still and being grateful. And not that we're not grateful and to pursue to look for more. It's just that pursuit is fun. And it's
Mm.
just what else can we create and build and who can we bring along with us? Like, we're at a point now where we want to, if we're going to open up another clinic, we want to partner with one of our staff if they want to. Like, you want to be a business owner? Great, we'll coach you. Like, let's partner up. And that's where we're finding a lot of fulfillment is, who else can we bring along this journey with us who, want to, just do more, be more.
Love it, man. I love it. My next question was going to be about hardships, life challenges. Obviously, you've alluded to them. If you want to add to that, great. Other than that, if you don't want to add to something else, as what you just went through was, I imagine, one of the significant ones, life pretty much being on the line, it seems like. Could you share with us a main takeaway from that you learned? I mean, did it make you better? Like, you had to go through it, so you didn't really have a choice, but
Yep.
you learned something from it. Did you grow from it?
Yeah. I think coming back down to that stillness of you don't always have to keep pushing all the time.
Mhm.
Just sitting back and enjoying the moment for sure. Um, I didn't realize how many people came out of the woodwork to support us. And I cried a lot in the hospital there, but it was never because of, oh, pity me or I'm never going to get better. It was because somebody would show up, somebody would bring food to my family, someone would, like, it was always out of gratitude. So it made me realize that there's a lot. I didn't know how many people cared. Let's just put it that way. I always thought a lot of relationships that I had with people were transactional,
Mhm.
that they only valued my friendship or my presence because I could help them solve a problem or answer a question, and that's fine. But then I realized after this situation that wasn't the case because so many people showed up, and it made me look internally. I'm like, oh, the relationship I have with myself is I have this, if it's transactional. So if I don't do this, I don't have self-worth. So that was one of the other things that I realized. I'm like, oh, this this projection of relationships that I have externally is actually an internal story.
And what a realization that is for anybody listening. It's take stock in your people, and what are our internal projections that we're putting out onto the world that may be not true, and hopefully we don't have to go through such a close call to recognize that. I'm very happy that you did, and I very much appreciate that you shared that with us. I think many of that, certainly I've, put my own insecurities or internal projections out into the world and found out with a slap in the face of some type that they weren't exactly true. But it's not surprising to me after all that you've shared with us, the impact that you've had on people and that they showed up for that. And I love that you said tears of gratitude. Those are the hardest ones for me,
Yep.
crying from pain and all that. Sure, it happens, but it's when you get that kind of love that you're just blown away sometimes.
Yep. Absolutely.
So what is one thing that you want, that you've shared so much? I mean, really, it's been a hell of a conversation for me, but what is one thing that you wish our listeners knew about specifically your business, not so much the industry?
Yeah. So I feel we in our business, being all encompassing and, hitting from all ends of the spectrum from rehabilitation to high performance, it's a place where you're going to learn. As I said earlier, everyone becomes a student of their own body. They get self-empowered so that they have now knowledge in which they can better self-preserve, but also thrive in the world. And by doing so, we help people move to not just what their expectation was, but beyond their expectations for their movement, health, and rehabilitation journeys. And that's, where our whole philosophy encompasses on, just being exceptional in the field. And we're trying to elevate the entire, standard of practice for what we do as professionals.
Lofty goals, man. I love it. That leads me into my next question, which again, you've answered in other ways throughout this conversation. It's my favorite question because I think about this a lot. For me, I don't put it in the questionnaire for a reason. I think the game we're playing is the game of life. I think being an entrepreneur is a category of life. I think being a son, a daughter, a father, all of these things are a category of the big game. I like to remind myself that that's the game that I'm playing. I have no idea when it's going to end. So it may be beneficial to me to think about what impact that I'm trying to create on the world. So my question for you is, what impact are you trying to leave on the world?
Well, I mean, it's, I can look at it from a perspective of professionalism and in the industry, but at the end of the day, who's going to show up at my funeral and what are they going to say? So trying not to get sucked into, my own personal professional goals. It's really, I need to be there more just for my kids and my wife. And even though we're together, it's having that presence of getting into their worlds, not just pulling them into mine. And so that when I do leave, they have the tools, not only the tools and the lessons to be, happy and well-adjusted and, resilient little human beings. But, they can also say, yeah, Dad was there for me and he was my hero.
I don't know, get a podcast or something, man. Share that story. It's been a pleasure. I do this all day, every Monday and Tuesday. There's been a lot of great conversations. This has definitely been my favorite. Awesome. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.